Don Quackenbush may not have realized it, but his fate was determined long before he was born. In fact, you might say that it went back as far as 1914 when Don's grandparents, George and Mary Schaefer, made the decision to move from Nebraska to Minnesota. This decision would affect not only their life, but also the lives of their descendants. Over 100 years later, the farm they purchased after that move remains in the family and is now owned and operated by Bruce and Dean Quackenbush, sons of Don and Pat Quackenbush. It has been celebrated as a century farm and just might go on to see many more decades within the family. The Schaefers purchased land in Everglade Township, Stevens County, just 1 mile outside the town of Shikayo, Minnesota. It was here that they settled and raised their 3 children, Lloyd, Lawrence, and Edith. Edith would later marry Winslow, nicknamed Wink Quackenbush. Wink joined his brothers-in-law in the farm operation, and the couple lived in a house on the farm site. Don was the third of 11 children born to Wink and Edith. He was born on September 12, 1928. He grew up on the farm working alongside his grandparents, uncles, and parents. Farming was all he knew and something he loved. Don attended school in Shikayo, often helping out the teachers by assisting fellow students with courses that some of the teachers were not trained to teach. These were war years, and there was a shortage of teachers in many schools. Don graduated in 1946 from Shikayo High School and would have enlisted in the Army, but was granted an exemption as the oldest son. He was needed at home to help the family and grow the food sent to soldiers fighting in the war. Don always felt bad about not having the opportunity to serve his country, but realized he had an important job back home. He worked on the farm in spring, summer, and fall, and then during the winter he would work at Trost Motors in Shikayo. Winter was also a time for travel and visiting relatives. On one of these winter trips, Don and Jean Blackwelder drove to Colorado and Oklahoma where they visited relatives. While they were gone, a neighbor, Gerhard Dirks, died in an electrocution accident while repairing a telephone line. The family needed help, so a call was made to Don and he returned home to work at the Dirks farm. Don worked for the Dirks family for 1.5 years. He used the money he earned there to purchase an M International tractor with a mounted corn picker. The picker was front-mounted versus side-mounted, so Don was able to open fields. This began what would become nearly a lifetime side business, custom corn picking. He continued to work on his grandfather's farm after graduation. He enlisted in the Minnesota National Guard, but the war ended shortly after. He had many good friends in and around Shikayo and stayed in touch with classmates. This eventually led to a Shikayo High School homecoming alumni dance a few years later. It was at this dance that he ran into Pat Wade. Pat was a year younger than Don in high school and knew him quite well. However, Don had a girlfriend in those days, so she never considered him as more than just a friend. When she graduated in 1947, Pat went to nurses training and then worked in Granite Falls, Minnesota. On a visit home with her sister, they decided to attend the homecoming dance with a group of friends. She danced the last dance of the evening with Don Quackenbush. After the dance, Pat and her sister began to walk back to her Aunt Annie's home where they were staying. Don pulled up and offered her a ride. Pat was initially angry because Don could have asked after the last dance. However, she accepted the ride anyway, and that was the beginning of a long relationship and marriage. Don and Pat were married on November 24, 1951 at St. Mary's Catholic Church in Shikayo. They moved onto the farm owned by his grandparents and into a small 3-bedroom home. They had electricity, but no running water for the first 5 years. Shortly after marriage, they began to plan their family. The couple had 14 children, with 2 passing away at birth. There were 3 sets of twins, and the 2 children they lost were from 2 of the sets. Peggy and her twin Peter were born in 1952, but Peter died at birth. Carol came along in 1953, followed by twins Jim and John. John died shortly after birth. Joan was added to the family in 1955, and twins Louise and Lori in 1956. Dean was born in 1957, Kay in 1958, and Bruce in 1959. Pat developed rheumatic fever in 1960, so the final 3 children came after she recovered. They were Eileen in 1961, Christine in 1963, and Tom in 1969. The large family soon outgrew the home, so a 3-bedroom addition was constructed in 1961. Don and Pat decided to build a new home in 1974, and that addition remained a part of the new construction. During this time, Don was dealing with some personal family tragedy. His parents both died in 1959, his mother in June and Dad in November. Don was only 31 years old and had 2 younger brothers, Harvey, age 15, and Bobby, age 13, to worry about. The boys went to live with Don's sister Caroline and her husband Del Sheldorf, who became their guardians. They lived just a quarter mile from Don and Pat, so they spent a great deal of time at the farm helping with chores and the younger children. After graduating from high school, both boys enlisted in the Army. Harvey was stationed in Germany and would write home with letters addressed to the Lazy Q Ranch. Harvey came back from the service in 1965 and decided to form a partnership with his older brother. However, 1 year after he returned, Harvey passed away unexpectedly. Don took this very hard as his brothers felt almost like his own children. It was a busy farm and household as Don and Pat's children grew. They encouraged their children to become active in school and extracurricular activities. It was a blessing that they lived only 1 mile from town, so the children could often walk or ride bike for practices. One thing that was always encouraged was music. Peggy, the oldest, showed a special interest and asked to purchase a musical instrument. Don hesitated at first, but after he saw her passion for music, he purchased a clarinet from his sister. Don and Pat continued to support each of their children when they chose to participate in music or the arts, so that also meant attending a lot of school concerts and programs. Sports was also encouraged. Both the girls and boys played many different sports throughout their school years. Don and Pat faithfully followed their children to each of their games, which meant many trips throughout the state. With the children so active in school, Don decided to get more involved in the school district. He ran for and was elected to the Chicago School Board and served on the board for 9 years. Don did not want his children to miss out on anything the school had to offer. He was also active in the local sportsman's club and the St. Mary's Catholic Church. Family trips didn't happen too often, but when they did, it was memorable. The family would pile into the Ford Country Squire station wagon. On one trip to Nebraska to visit relatives, the car held 13 family members. They enjoyed playing games in the car, and they really loved to stop and eat lunch along the way. As if 12 kids was not enough, the family hosted an exchange student, Ole Beck of Denmark, who has remained like another child to them. The children also remember some unique winters on the farm. Carol wrote about one of these in an article titled "Snowed In."
It was the winter of 1969. A combination of wind, cold temperatures, and lots of snow caused the 10 to 15 foot drifts that covered the long driveway. I was 15. There was no way out. We were snowed in on the farm for 22 days. Dad had a tractor with a scoop bucket and nothing else but a few shovels to dig us out. Little brother Tom had not yet arrived, so there were 11 of us Quackenbush kids. Dad had feeder cattle and other animals, plus his pregnant wife and 11 hungry kids to feed. The situation was dire. On about the 15th day, snowmobiles brought in much-needed supplies. They flew atop the snowdrifts, bringing feed for the cattle, milk, and other groceries for the people. The next year, Dad bought an attachment for the big tractor that would throw the snow well to the side rather than piling it up along the driveway. I think many of us would agree that the best memories are made on snow days.
After his grandfather died in 1972, Don purchased the original 480-acre farm. The farm business was designed to be passed on and hopefully expanded to make room for the sons to continue the farming tradition. Estate planning, business modeling, and various new enterprises were often discussed. Don later picked up more land, expanding the farm to 1,800 acres. Livestock was always a part of the operations. A feedlot full of cattle kept them busy all winter. Chickens were a steady source of eggs and meals. Lots of Saturdays were spent cleaning the barns of hog manure until the first hog barn was built in 1974. That expanded to 300 sows, farrow to finish, by the 1980s, and several more finishing barns were added. Don also continued to do custom combining each fall, constantly updating and improving his equipment. Don encouraged hard work, but he also shared his curiosity for new things. Other enterprises were tried, some good, and others not so much, but each one taught them good lessons to keep trying new things. Sunflowers for birds was one of the new crops they tried. The sunflowers did not use elevator space. Instead, the seeds were cleaned and bagged for retail sale at several stores. This only lasted a couple of years. Don was one of the first farmers in his area to use liquid fertilizer. He tried a method of injecting a herbicide into the nitrogen application during spring field cultivating. It worked for certain fields, but better and safer methods came along. Don and his sons used the ridge till farming method for almost 10 years. Today they use a reduced minimum tillage method instead of the standard plowing practice. Don was innovative in his farming and very forward-thinking. He carefully researched new crop ideas or equipment. Don liked to share his farming ideas, so he decided to host Russian farmers in a farm exchange program. These men were anxious to learn everything they could, and Don was a good teacher. The programs usually resulted in both sides learning a great deal from each other. In 1957, Don purchased a Super H Farmall tractor that was a 1954 model but still brand new. He used that tractor for years and rebuilt the engine in 1962. The experience he had from working at Trost Motors helped him through the project. He was very proud of that tractor and often drove it in parades. He plowed with the SH for many years. He used a 3-bottom plow and liked the SH better than the M. He said, "You could go to the dance at night after plowing with the SH, but with the M, you just went to bed." Soon, the equipment advanced to a point where Don decided it was time to let the boys take over. Once the tractor cab was filled with electronic monitors for planting, applying, and steering, Don chose to step back from the farm operation. Bruce and Dean took over, and in 1977, the farm was incorporated to Lazy Q Farms. The name was chosen to honor the memory of Harvey and those letters he sent from Germany. About the time Don was entrusting more to the boys, he started a hobby that turned into a business. Don's Mats and Frames was a full-service picture frame, glass, and mat shop. He started by making the frames from bare wood with tools and molding cutters. Soon he found a source of ready-finished moldings and supplies for art mounting. An old chicken coop was converted into a workshop full of tools and storage for the art inventory. This was an excellent job for Don, keeping him busy while still overseeing the activity around the farm. Don had a keen eye to coordinate colors in the artwork with the frame, style, and finish. He did a great deal of framing for local hospitals, the University of Minnesota Morris, and Pheasants Forever. Don and Pat also began to enjoy a more relaxed lifestyle, spending time with grandkids and doing some traveling. They were able to celebrate 64 years of marriage before Don passed away on October 8, 2015, at the age of 87. Don enjoyed meeting the people who came to his shop or at the many functions he attended. He was the type of guy who could do it all. One of his favorite sayings was, "You can't always do what you like, but you can like what you do." Don loved what he did. Farm life was not always easy, but he made it fun. He instilled hard work and encouraged trying new things. He was a pioneer in farming and an engineer in the advancement of agriculture.